You want me?
Saya start now for us.
Yes, please.
The same bahasa Malaysia. Is there any removal of difficulties? Let's pray. Adakah penghalang sukaran kesukaran selain Tuhan? Katakanlah terpujilah Tuhan. Ya Tuhan, semua hamba-Nya dan semua tunduk pada perintahnya. Adakah penghalang sukaran kesukaran selain Tuhan? Katakanlah terpujilah Tuhan. Ya Tuhan, semua hamba-Nya dan semua tunduk pada perintahnya.
This prayer is in 3 languages. It's in English and Spanish and the language of the original inhabitants here in Chile called the Mapuches. It's an indigenous group that lives in the southern part of Chile. And it's the short children's prayer. Oh Dios, guíame, protégame, ilumina la lámpara de mi corazón y haz de mí una estrella brillante. Tú eres el fuerte y el poderoso. Owen gana chen, my chintunia yen, kukantunia yen, galum tun mayen. Tanyi puke ni kate, ka taumane in che mel kini wilif wanulen. Amy tana when you loo, the when you loo. O God, guide me, protect me, illumine the lamp of my heart, and make me a brilliant star. Thou art the mighty and powerful. Abdul Baha.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liu, and thank you very much, Mr. Dunbar. I just need to welcome a few people. First of all, our friend, a very, very good friend, Empire from Congo. Empire, thank you so much for joining us. Empire, smile so I see that you are hearing us. Okay, good. Empire, last week it was late. Thank you for joining us. What time is it there right now?
Now it is 2 past 11 a.m.
Oh, okay. How wonderful. Thank you for joining us. And also my French Canadian sister, Gibby. Bonsoir, Gibby. Welcome, welcome.
Bonsoir.
Dear friends, we have a very special evening here for you, as a very special speaker has accepted to join us. He has been with us before, and I had to send a few emails before I was able to make sure he's going to be here tonight. Dr. Kambeze Etemad is an MD, is psychiatrist, and he's an educator, author, amateur musicians. I'm reading whatever he wrote. I wouldn't dare to say things like that, but that's his choice. And a psychiatrist. He founded Talisman Development Services, a training and consulting company that combines ideas from many fields in a fresh approach to maximizing human capacity in life and work. Dr. Etemad is also a retired homeschool dad. Dr. Etemad, thank you very much for joining us. Please go ahead.
The rain is just falling on McAllen, Texas.
Friends,
What kind of rain?
kindly mute yourselves. Kindly mute yourselves. So staying positive and unifying in the face of world events and political turmoil. Go ahead, please.
Hi, everyone. Just can you see the screen, the slide?
I can.
Okay. It's always a treat to be here. I think this is what, the fourth time, and it's just such a wonderful environment and great chemistry. And I always love being part of any type of learning and discussion. This topic is a little scary for me to talk about, mostly because it's new in terms of having put it together, but also because it's very emotionally charged, I think, for a lot of people everywhere. Those of you who are familiar with my talks know that I always like to give disclaimers at the beginning or qualifiers. So as usual, there are way too many slides that I've created for a 1 hour or less than an hour, and there's too much in each slide, and there are way too many quotes to be actually read during this session. So as a result, in some ways, of course, enjoy the slides as much as you want, but they are mostly a prompt for me, and they're going to go much faster than anyone's ability to take everything in. So don't try to follow everything, because you just might have a seizure. And you can always go back to the slides in the video to read in detail, especially the quotes that are mostly going to be referenced rather than read in their entirety. The other disclaimer is that this subject is something about which I myself am still learning a lot about, because I'm trying to figure out answers for myself. So what is being shared tonight is really just a snapshot at this moment in time of where I happen to be in understanding this, that I use primarily to keep myself sane as the world gets crazier. It really started, I think, at the time of the conflict between Russia and the Ukraine. And then it escalated when everything happened in Israel and Gaza. But the emotions in my country, in the US, became very intense after the most recent presidential election was finished, and during this transition of power that the United States has been witnessing. The feelings of everybody are very, very intense. There's a tremendous amount of distorted thinking on every side. And there was a lot more polarization than I have ever seen. And I'll speak frankly, even among Baha'is who are supposed to be nonpartisan, even Baha'is are slipping into polarized reflexes in the way we engage the world and the way we even engage each other. So there's been a lot of reflection on these events and on the reactions of others and my own feelings, a lot of discussion. I've been asked by people to facilitate discussions about this. And I found myself gravitating towards a particular document, The Promise of World Peace, among others in the Baha'i literature. And I'm going to share what I've come up with for myself up until now. So the target audience is really two groups. Anyone who wants to understand a little bit about what might be some aspects of a Baha'is response to what's going on in the world. But it's also actually also specifically for Baha'is, because I don't often do this, but I do think the Baha'is need to take a look at themselves and see just how much we are unconsciously ourselves being more partisan than really our teachings, actually enjoin us to not be that way. So let's start with the distress. There's a lot of fear on all sides, in all directions, about events in the world at large and about the transition of power in the United States. There's a great sense of breakdown and division, and people are wanting to figure out how to understand all of this and how to respond, not react, but to be proactive, how to be positively proactive about this. For me, it starts with a very basic assurance that I found that is available in the Baha'i literature, which is that peace is inevitable, that good stuff is coming no matter what. And all of the good things that come with peace within a nation and between nations is coming. That is a positive assurance that is embedded in the teachings of Baha'u'llah and in the Baha'i literature. And here is an excerpt from The Promise of World Peace, starting with the yellow. World peace is not only possible, but inevitable. It is the next stage in the evolution of this planet. In the words of one great thinker, the planetization of mankind. Like I said, I won't be able to read everything, but you have the slide to go back and read the entire thing, or just read the entire document, The Promise of World Peace. So with this assurance, the question is, well, how do we get there? If it's going to happen, how we get there is completely up to us. And again, in the document, whether peace is to be reached only after unimaginable horrors precipitated by humanity's stubborn clinging to old patterns of behavior, or is to be embraced now by an act of consultative will, is the choice before all who inhabit the earth. So the pathway is up to us, but the inevitability is not a choice. These are just some other quotes about favorable signs that this peace is coming, and the fact that science and technology has made it actually practical now. So why is it inevitable? Why would anybody think that this is going to happen no matter what? It's because we've been through this kind of thing before. Historically, humanity has been through the type of crisis we're in now, but at other levels, at other degrees of society throughout the ages. We have mastered the layers of family cohesion and identity, clan, tribe, city-state, nationhood. These are societal challenges of coherence and systems that at one time we didn't have. We fought and almost destroyed ourselves until we figured out how to do the next level of things. So we've done this before. So the idea is that all of these processes that are happening right now are part of historical processes that are in fact developmental. So looking at the world as an organism, looking at all of humanity as an organism that is going through developmental stages. And the past stages is in our history. And we can see the way we screwed up and the things that we did great. And we can see the mixture and the messiness of progress. But it is part of the development of humanity for millennia. So again, from this document, the human race as a distinct organic unit has passed through evolutionary stages analogous to the stages of infancy and childhood in the lives of its individual members, and is now in the culminating period of its turbulent adolescence, approaching its long-awaited coming of age. So basically, all the crazy that's going on right now is because collectively humanity is an adolescent, filled with conflicting thoughts and impulses and emotions and reflexes and patterns of behavior, struggling to embrace what's going to keep us going and throw away what is no longer working. That is the stage that we're at. So let's take a look at development as a process. Development is a process whereby organisms expand and consolidate ever more differentiated and interdependent systems, which enable them to act in, and interact with their environment with growing complexity and sophistication. Development usually travels through stages that go in a sequence, and each stage is often characterized by a particular crisis or issue that needs to be resolved. And when it is, it leads to learning new skills and the ability to do new things. And the external indicator of this progress is called a milestone. Okay, here's just extra stuff on development, but we'll just skip it, but you can look back and get more depth to it. So developmental milestones are operative skills and characteristics that are achieved by an organism, whether that organism is a cell, a frog, a human being, a family, a workplace, or a planet. A milestone is when that organism acquires new skills and characteristics at a certain stage in development that allows it a new level of function and success. But before that milestone comes the crisis. And basically the crisis is the way you did things up until now don't work anymore. Your traits, your skills, your habits, your reflexes, they're no longer helping you. They're screwing things up for you. And so the crisis is you keep going back to your old ways of doing things, and your situation gets worse and worse and worse until finally you realize at some point that you need to learn new reflexes, new habits, new ideas. You know, again, depending on whether you're talking about a frog or a human being or a society, it's more or less complicated. So if we apply this idea to the world right now, what we're talking about is that all of the systems and ideologies that have gotten us to this point, they don't work anymore. In the Baha'i writings, they refer to as lamentably defective, because we are about to enter a new stage as a planet. We're going to achieve new milestones, and therefore we're in this new level of crisis. And here again, the House of Justice is quoting Baha'u'llah in the peace statement. The winds of despair are, alas, blowing from every direction, and the strife that divides and afflicts the human race is daily increasing. The signs of impending convulsions and chaos can now be discerned inasmuch as the prevailing order appears to be lamentably defective. So we are at a point where we need to see that the way we do things is not going to work going forward. We need new forms of societal habits and reflexes and systems, political, economic, how we understand religion, social and cultural patterns, the way science operates, everything. But ultimately, it starts with, we need a new understanding of what is human nature. What are we capable of? That's where it starts. So much have aggression and conflict come to characterize our social, economic, and religious systems that many have succumbed to the view that such behavior is intrinsic to human nature and therefore ineradicable. And then at the bottom, the conflicts we are in demands a reassessment of the assumptions upon which the commonly held view of mankind's historical predicament is based. And so this document is saying we've got to look at the way we look at things and look at things differently, and then act on that new way of seeing things. That is at the heart of managing any developmental crisis. So pulling it all together, we look at what the world has gone through as a historical process, as a developmental process. We're in a crisis where the old ways are not working, and we have yet to achieve the milestones. We've had, analogous crises and milestones in the past, which we talked about, and we can look at that in history. But the world today is at a point where all ideologies and systems that we have inherited are lamentably defective. And the pending milestone is that we need to find new ways of seeing and doing everything based on where the world is headed. And we will achieve this. It's inevitable because we've achieved analogous milestones in the past. So what do we see in the world? Because we are in the middle of this adolescent crisis. The Baha'i writings explain that we are in the midst of two parallel processes: the process of integration and disintegration. Disintegration is basically the breakdown of belief systems, institutions, formulae, theories that have shaped the way we do things up until now. They're all falling apart. And they're clearing the way so that the integration process, which is a new enlightened way of doing things that all kinds of people are doing in this corner of the world, in that corner of the world, in their profession, in their neighborhood, in whatever. It's not coherent yet, but there's all of this new integrative thinking and behavior that's happening that will eventually coalesce into a new way of thinking and doing. And here are just some quotes that speak to this, ending of one thing and beginning of another. From Baha'u'llah: soon will the present day order be rolled up and a new one spread out in its stead. And in other parts of the Baha'i literature, here is a part that talks about how this power in the universe is basically breaking the old ties and unloosing the bonds for a new way of doing things. And here's another one: the two parallel processes of integration and disintegration. And another description: simultaneous processes of rise and fall, of integration and disintegration, of order and chaos, with their continuous and reciprocal reactions on each other. Now, both of these processes are happening and they are necessary. And it's important to realize that everything that's happening in the world is either part of or contributing to one or the other of these, both of which are necessary. So even when somebody, an influential personality or a political leader is doing terrible stuff, they are in fact contributing to the disintegration of what needs to go anyway. What's important is that those who want to focus on building the integrative processes of life, that's where the energy is to be spent for those who see it, and not be despondent that someone might be contributing to an inevitable disintegration. And where will we see these processes? Well, we see the disintegrative processes in the news all the time, and we see it in the past 150 years of history. And where do we see the integration processes? We'll save that for later. But the idea is that this is all part of our coming of age, and it is going to happen. And so we need to remember that this is the overarching process that's happening to explain and understand events in our world. So with all of this disintegration and integration, what's the diagnosis? What's the underlying milestone? What's the underlying issue that needs to be resolved? This is not something that I'm coming up with, okay? But the idea is that disunity is the illness. It is the root cause of all of this. And here again from the peace statement, disunity is a danger that the nations and peoples of the earth can no longer endure. The consequences are too terrible to contemplate, too obvious to require any demonstration. And at the bottom, all contemporary forces of change validate this view. So what is the prescription? Definitely not from me, but as Baha'u'llah speaks of himself, the all-knowing physician hath his finger on the pulse of mankind. He perceiveth the disease and prescribeth in his unerring wisdom the remedy. And the remedy is unity. And prosperity, peace, and progress are all dependent on unity. Now, Baha'is love to talk about unity. And frankly, most of us, when we talk about it, we are using a very superficial understanding of what it means. But the Baha'i writings are definitely not superficial. They're meaty. They've got bones and teeth and flesh, and there's a lot to it. So first of all, unity is a reality in the universe already. It is an operating principle of existence. Biology and the sciences show how much unity there is in the physical universe. It is a psychosocial reality about the way human nature operates and the way we best operate. It is an ecological reality. It is a spiritual and philosophical archetype, and it will eventually become an economic and political expression. But it is a reality. It's not something we conjure up. In the Baha'i writings, it says the oneness of humanity, unity, is not just some vague emotionalism or some pious hope. It is a reality. And the world has yet to catch up expressing that reality. So it starts with an attitude within individual hearts, and it translates into the way we live as individuals, which then lead to cultural norms in our social worlds. But in the Baha'i writings, it also talks about unity being the way we actually conceive society. And then it impacts our understanding of everything, from human nature to the nature of religion, to the universe, to even our understanding of the divine. So unity is a reality that is emerging, like it or not. And as a result, our models of life, our paradigms of what we do and how we do things in general, in our personal life, in every field of endeavor, and ultimately for society, these models are going to gradually evolve because the reality of unity is emerging inevitably. So let's look at this oneness very quickly. It's kind of a summary of some of the core principles in the Baha'i teachings. Oneness is really about unity and diversity, that we recognize that there is difference and sameness at the same time, and together they bring life, but only when justice is operative. Like oneness and unity can't happen if there isn't justice. And so we need to recognize that it's not just about having a feeling or an attitude. It's about the way we operate as people. Are we being fair-minded? Are we consulting with justice? Are we adjudicating? And do we have legislation that is based on justice? That is what will express this inherent oneness. And so Baha'is will talk about the three onenesses: the oneness of humanity, the oneness between religions, and the singleness of reality of God. And all of the subsidiary orbiting expressions of oneness. So the singular truth of the oneness of reality, but then the orbiting principles, which oftentimes Baha'is will talk about as the various principles of the Baha'i faith. And they're there, and most people are probably familiar, so I won't spend time on it. But this wave of oneness is just propagating itself in the world, and it is changing the consciousness of people, despite the fact that a lot of people still are fighting it. And so this idea of oneness needs to shape everything, including not only the way we see humanity and global affairs, but how we see our own fields of activity, whether we're an artist or a healthcare provider or a lawyer or a civil servant or whatever it is we do. There is a way that oneness can reshape the way what we do is done. And this is already happening, not just from Baha'is, but from anybody who's capable of understanding the integration of things in this total way. So why is this wave propagating? Why is the establishment of this oneness inevitable beyond what was already said about history and development? And this is where this conversation becomes more spiritual. Because there is a spiritual energy that has been infused into the world, whose name is oneness. The spirit of oneness has been infused into the world, and it is touching every heart and mind, even those that are unconscious that it's happening. And it is moving the world forward, whether we like it or not. It's propelling this development. And it's as inevitable as the wave in the song by Sting. So I'll just read these words because they're not that many. Every ripple on the ocean, every leaf on every tree, every sand dune in the desert, every power we never see. There is a deeper wave than this swelling in the world. Feel it rising in the cities. Feel it sweeping over land, over borders, over frontiers. Nothing will its power withstand. This is a reality that the Baha'i teachings strongly speak to. That there's a spiritual energy that has inspired every unifying act and person and agency of the past 200 years, even if they were not aware of it. Doesn't mean that it's a Baha'i thing. It's a bigger thing than that. And here are some quotes from the Baha'i writings that speak to this idea, that there's a new life that's been breathed into humanity, and this worldwide regeneration is because of this supreme animating power. And that these principles are being taken by a world still unconscious of their source, but they all find their meaning in what Baha'u'llah brought. And even in the peace statement, which was issued to the people and the leaders of the world, this urge towards unity has been invested with the force of divine authority. So this is the wave that's propelling us forward. And as a result, a new paradigm, a new way of seeing things, of being and doing things, a new configuration of ideas and principles, a new spirit and attitude, new values, new systems, and then eventually a new total system will emerge. It is already emerging. And not just from the efforts of Baha'is, but from all directions. This new paradigm is integrative. And what do I mean by that? It means you're willing to take the greatest hits from every direction, and bring them together, but not be bound by any of the sources. It's like you create your own playlists. I get my 3 favorite Beatles songs, my 3 favorite Billy Joel songs, and blah, 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 blah. And my playlist is an integration without feeling like I have to listen to that entire Beatles album or that entire Billy Joel album. Integrative thought is about taking what is meritorious in every approach to reality, but not feeling bound by that model of life. And it's unprecedented. There's no comparison to anything in the past. And here is a quote that talks about this approach that comes from the writings of Shoghi Effendi. And he is discussing the theory, the political theory, the political model of the Baha'i administrative order. And basically he says, any of the diverse systems which the minds of men at various periods of their history have contrived have no adequate criterion. And he goes on to say that this political model, the administrative order, incorporates within its structure certain elements which are to be found in each of the 3 recognized forms of government without being in any sense a mere replica of any one of them. And then he goes on, and I would recommend you actually go to the source and read the whole thing, but here's a snippet. And basically what he's saying is that the political model that is embedded in the Baha'i administrative order is an example of integrative thinking. It takes the best of multiple approaches to governance and incorporates them and blends them and harmonizes them and adds extra stuff without letting any of the crap from any form of government into its machinery. That is what it means to be integrative. That is what it means to be acting on this emerging paradigm. And this is up for every level of life, from looking at human nature all the way up to looking at global governance. And this paradigm also relies on the power of principle, the importance of raising things to the level of principle. And again, from the peace statement, the primary challenge is to raise the context to the level of principle. The essential merit of spiritual principle induces an attitude, a dynamic, a will, an aspiration, which facilitate the discovery and implementation of practical measures. What they're saying is that things shouldn't be done just for expediency, but because the power of principle has a way of awakening human willpower, that it's not just theories and ideas, it's about changing the way we are. And principles can do that if we're targeted about it. So this new paradigm, this new system of things that is slowly emerging, can serve as a nucleus that, just like a nucleus in a cell, it impacts the surrounding cell. Over time, it begins to increasingly shape the way things are done around it. It can be a template whereby we can offer critique of the way things are being done now. And ultimately, it will replace, just like the imaginal cells in a caterpillar, they all start off as individual cells behaving like butterfly cells instead of caterpillar cells. And the immune system of the caterpillar starts to attack those individual imaginal cells. And a lot of them get killed. And there's more and more goop that accumulates inside. But after a while, there's a critical mass of imaginal cells. They start to communicate with each other and coordinate. And eventually, they start to connect. And the butterfly literally grows out of the breakdown goop of the dying caterpillar. So living by this new paradigm and connecting with other imaginal people is part of this process that we can choose to be in. And it's already happening. So if we look at all of these things and know that this is inevitable, then we can recognize that there will be a judgment of history and a judgment of God towards those who work for this and those who work against it. Eventually, history will look at anyone who is aligning themselves and working with this wave of oneness. Their legacy, their work will be incorporated into the integration process. And anybody who works against this wave of oneness will be swept away by history eventually. They will not have a permanent effect. And here's a quote where Baha'u'llah talks about those who work against the wave of oneness. And many people are mixed. They partly work against and partly work for. So what happens with those people? Well, it just means that the different parts of us will have their own separate sort of fates in the universe, in the eyes of God, in history. But one thing that I've found that's very important is that we can never predict how eventually someone is going to choose to respond to this wave. And in fact, if we look at the history of the central figures of the Baha'i faith, the history of the life of the Bab, of Baha'u'llah, of Abdul Baha, and even of Shoghi Effendi, they never preemptively decided which leaders of the world were going to go for or against where the world is going. They offered to all of them the opportunity to step to the plate. And what I find these days is, frankly, I hear Baha'is already casting God's judgment on some of the leaders of the world. And frankly, that is not the example that's been set by the founders of the Baha'i movement, because we never know when someone will actually be working towards the integration process, or at least accelerating the disintegration. So that's part of our cautionary tale. But what it brings it down to is there are plenty of ideologies out there that have been created, and their track record is terrible. They might have worked for a while in the past, but they're just ruining our world. And in this very long section from the peace statement, which I won't read, but at the end, the Universal House of Justice quotes Shoghi Effendi that basically says, if an institution or a theory or a model no longer promotes the welfare of humanity, it's time to throw it out, basically. It's time to throw it out. And history will throw it out. Whatever political and economic system or model or actor, they will eventually be thrown out if they are not promoting the general welfare of humanity. So I wanted to look at how this paradigm applies to a couple things. One of them is human nature, but I'm actually going to skip that for the sake of time. I want to look at governance for a couple minutes. There is this slowly growing new model of governance that's coming up in the world, and there's the old way of governance. Okay, so let's look at the new model. Okay, in some ways, the Baha'i administrative order is one example, but it's not the only source of new ideas for an enlightened way of governance. But let's look at some of those pieces. For example, in the Baha'i electoral process, there's no campaigning, and it's secret. And the criteria that are used are not based on anything but qualities and characteristics and service record. Decision-making operates in a different way in the Baha'i administrative model, which is really, it's a political model. The Shoghi Effendi even called it a polity to emerge. And We'll talk about that in a second. And in the new governance, there is a role for the wise and the spiritually learned. There is a role for beneficial articles. There's a role for how we talk. There is a role for the coherence between true religion and true science. If we look just at decision-making for a second and look specifically at the third phase of it, which is consultation, one of the core principles is that there has to be opinions that clash. It's necessary for multiple opinions to clash. It doesn't say anything about let two groups of people band together and duke it out with each other and come up with a compromise, but let all opinions about a matter clash until the way forward becomes clear. And the other thing that we find in the Baha'i consultative process is that when you are consulting, you're only consulting about one matter at a time. You're not trying to decide about 5 things together. So why is that relevant? Because let's look, for example, at the American political system. Okay, here are some of the hallmarks of the American political system. It's very partisan. It's driven by special interest. Campaigning is a huge part of the electoral process. The legislative process is full of partisanship, lobbying, what's called riders, where while you're deciding this one thing, let's add on this other thing as an appendix just to get it through. That would never pass in like a different type of governance. The media has completely lost its objectivity on both sides. I don't really think I've seen a classic journalistic article in 20 years that really follows the real principles of journalistic integrity from any news outlet. Both science and religion in the United States are totally screwed up, totally. And I know that some people might say, oh, well, you're probably referring to the people who are like, shooting down, global warming and the people who are anti-vaxxers. But the reality is that even if you take both of those issues, the true science about global warming and the true science about vaccines does not fall where either political party is currently fighting from. So both sides are actually, frankly, unscientific. Same thing goes with religion. So I have this personal speculation I'll share in 1 minute. If we look at the Declaration of Independence, the US Declaration of Independence, in which it says that the people have a right to reconstitute its government whenever it no longer meets its needs. And then we look at a letter, famous letter, that Thomas Jefferson wrote to James Madison while the Constitution was being deliberated. Jefferson was in France and he wrote to Madison. And in this letter, he basically said, the time it takes for half of the adult population to die, by that time, the country should reconstitute itself. At that time, the half-life of adults in America was 19 years. So he basically said every 19 years, America should reconstitute. If we extrapolate that to now, well, the half-life of the adult population right now is 70 years. But the point being is that it's embedded even in the political theory of the US government that it needs to reconstitute itself on a regular basis. And then if we look at George Washington's farewell address, in which he amply warns against the destructive influence of not only political parties, but the party attitude and of special interests, he basically predicts the despotism we have today. It's literally predicted in his farewell address. So if we pull all this together, just these 3 documents, I'm sure there's plenty of others, and apply it today, what it means is that American government is due for reconstituting to end parties, to block special interests, and come up with different electoral rules. Now, I'm not saying that to advocate one thing or another. All I'm saying is that this concept of evolution is not just coming from Baha'i writings. It's embedded in the way people who want to move things forward think. All right. So that's just a little bit. So this disintegration is everywhere in the news, but hopefully the Baha'i writings help give us a perspective that, one, this world unrest is attributable to the failure of leaders from reading the signs of the times. But at the same time, it's only transitory. That it is not permanent. It is not, the apocalypse. It is not, the dystopian world. It's transitory, because the other side of all this is all of the integration that's going on. Now, here's the problem. The integration that's happening is never in the news. Frankly, it's not sexy enough. It's not sensational enough, but it's there. There is integration and enlightenment going on everywhere. The thing is that we got to look for it. We got to find it. It's not going to be, it's not going to be on a big, social media splash. It's not going to be on the front page of any news outlet. It's not going to be in the place. It's happening at the grassroots and in the quiet corners that will ultimately coalesce, because there are bits of this emerging everywhere, and their coalescence is inevitable. It probably won't be in our lifetime, but it is happening. And the more we connect with others who are integrators, the better for everyone, including our own mental health. So the world is moving on towards its destiny. Then will the coming of age of the entire human race be proclaimed and celebrated by all the peoples and nations of the earth. So with this perspective, staying hopeful is not just, let me just conjure up an emotion and stay hopeful. It's based on a different understanding of what we're going through, and will help bolster our own sense of mental health, the ability to not be debilitated, and staying in positive motion. Not ours, puny mortals that we are, to attempt at so critical a stage in the long and checkered history of mankind to arrive at a precise and satisfactory understanding of the steps that are yet to come. What we do now is see these principles and immerse ourselves in them as best as possible. Learn them, discuss them, live them, share them, apply them. Integrate, take the best of everything and throw out the worst of everything. As a healthcare provider, I take the best of what comes from the MD world, but I also take the best that comes from homeopathy and holism and energetic work, because they all have a basis in effectiveness. And I throw out the crap that each one also has. So we can do that with every aspect of life. Connect with other integrators, find them. And when I'm talking to everybody, if you're not a Baha'i, connect with Baha'is, but Baha'is are not the only integrators. So everybody, including the Baha'is, find other people too. Don't have the hubris to think that Baha'is are the only ones who are enlightened about this. Some people are even more enlightened than we are, frankly. And advocate for principles, but be cautious about how we advocate for principles. Advocate for principles without getting caught up in policy debate, because policy debate is the jurisdiction of parties, and we don't want to be part of that divisive process. And there are many, many levels of change and progress. It is impossible for anyone to do all of them. So pick the ones that are meaningful for you. Work on your personal life and your interpersonal life, and then choose if you want to do something activist or be part of building the alternative way of things in one form or another, whether it's creating new cultural norms or making enlightened choices in your economic choices. Choose not to or to support or not support this industry or that business or this company or whatever, because frankly, governments follow where economics goes. And if enlightened people make different economic choices, microeconomic and macroeconomic, governments will follow. Propagate these ideas in growing numbers. Create collectives that operate in new ways or join collectives that operate in a new way. And know that let this inevitability bolster your mood. So I know I just threw a lot out, but I'll end with this. It said here, not ours to try to envision what's coming. Ours rather the duty, however confused the scene, however dismal the present outlook, however circumscribed the resources we dispose of, to labor serenely, confidently, and unremittingly to lend our share of assistance in whatever way circumstances may enable us to the operation of the forces at play. Okay, I just finished having my own seizure, so I'm going to go fall asleep for about 15 minutes and I'll be back. So, but no. So thank you for letting me just sort of throw way more than should be allowed in any one sitting. But I hope at least one thing might have clicked for each person. And definitely the best part of tonight will be the discussion.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Etemad. I'm reading the chat. Bravo. I love the energy. Thank you. It's beautiful. Thank you so much. I will read the chat a little later because it's kind of heavy. Thank you for all the new ways you actually to deal with this situation to us. We really appreciate it. I just wanted to ask the friends to keep their questions short because we have about 100 people tonight and the subject is very interesting and exciting. So some people are asking if it's possible for them to get a copy of the slides. And friends, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Sometimes I'm not able to respond to your emails immediately. Alice, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just thinking as he was talking, I was reading, I don't know what this may be related, but to me, it all came into view for me. Is in the Baha'i faith, we talk about the hukala. And we have, what I've gotten this week and listening to this tonight, we gonna have to learn how to develop our own resources, whatever little bit we have. If you have young grandkids or that want to do a business, and I think that as old as me myself, I'm 81. I have a grandson that has invested in business, started little schools. I don't have the energy for all of that, but we're going to have to learn how to help our young people in a more positive way to develop a business, to develop resources for the future. Because if you sitting here my age, I don't have the energy to go out and do and develop something, but I sure, after all you live, you should have something in your head that you could help. There should be something if you have a child and see pretensions in that child. then you should be the one encouraging that child. And as my granddaughter tells me, I'm the foundation. You know, she says she the leader because they're younger. And I said, that's fine. But we as the older one, we are the foundation.
Alice,
And we
thank
need
you
your help.
so much, Alice. First of all, this is the first time you're joining us. Thank you for your comments. Very, very wise comments. Not everyone can contribute the same way. I will, if you're finished, I will have Dr. Etemad to respond. Are you finished or did I interrupt you?
I am fine, honey.
Are you? Okay. We love you, Alice. Go ahead.
I completely agree. I hear two things there. One, the shaping and empowerment and the equipping of our children and those younger than us is the way that this new way will grow more and more, both ideals but also very practically. And that's the other part. This idea of economic self-sufficiency is critical. I think about two different things. One, a House of Justice member once gave a talk, and he explained that when the Romans started to flock to the churches and Christianity grew and exploded, it wasn't because they believed in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost exclusively. It's because the churches were providing care and food and meeting the economic and practical needs of the surrounding community. So the other thing I think about is the Jewish world. They have endured literally millennia of oppression. And they have their faith and they have their belief, but the other side of it is that they have developed a transgenerational capacity to provide economic self-sufficiency to each other. That is a tremendous capacity that is necessary. And the House has even spoken to this in letters about social and economic development. So I 100% agree.
Alice, please go ahead if you have anything more to say.
It was just that sitting back looking at our young people, and even as the Baha'i faith encourages with children classes, but it's much more than having children classes, and that is preparing our children for this world.
Absolutely.
I lived in Alabama and I was raised in a school called Covenant County Training School. And I said, people talk about Alabama a lot, but I was trained to live in this world and survive, and how to make ends meet, how to make a garden, how to sew, how to do. Young people just sitting doing nothing. They don't know how to grow anything. They don't know how to make their own clothes. And those are the things that I have tried with in our community to talk about. But I was in Hawaii and I do what they call a recycling garden. Every 3 months you can eat out of this garden. So I went to Hawaii with some people, and that's what I did, and they want me to come back. But I don't feel as well as I did a year ago to go back to do that. But to teach you how to recycle a garden in a bucket, I did it in cloth, I did it in pasteboard, but to show you how to survive. And that's what our young people don't know today, how to survive.
Actually,
Absolutely.
maybe Alice, this should be the subject or the topic of our next session. Thank you very much, Alice. Appreciate it. We really, really appreciate that you joined tonight and you commented and participated. Love you. Sarah, Carly, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Dr. Etemad. I'm really like flabbergasted by your presentation. I'm looking forward to watching it at home on my own so I can get more of what you shared. I really liked towards the end when you spoke about the different about the wave of oneness and how the protagonists were invited to step in, and there would be antagonists and the mixed ones, and the fact that you said that even the significant members of the Baha'i faith, Baha'u'llah, Abdul Baha, Shoghi Effendi, they all exemplified this, to not judge people, to leave the mind open to unforeseeable choices of others. I think that is so important, because sometimes I'm like trying to assess the receptivity of people, and maybe at the time when I meet them, they're not, because they're hungry or because they're concerned about something very important in their life. But I shouldn't give up. I should allow people, to be able to make that choice when they're in a state where they're open to having that opportunity.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
What a great comment. Thank you. Thank you. It was a great comment. Please go ahead, Dr. Etemad.
One of the things that I've noticed in my country, in the United States, is that in-person discussions, in interpersonal conversations, in online and social media discussions, there's plenty of spillage of Baha'is opinions about different things that are going on in our country, in the world. And what's interesting to me is that, frankly, a lot of the discourse of Baha'is who want to pick a side, even unconsciously, they're picking consistently the left side. And the reality is that there are plenty aspects of the left party that are absolutely horrible and equal in number to the number of horrible things that are part of the right platform. And Baha'is have to be very careful about not leaning and recognizing that the reason why partisanship is wrong is because it's packaged. It's, let's get 50% of bullshit and 50% of good stuff, throw it together and call it the Democrats. Let's get another 50% of another set of crap and 50% of some legitimate things, package them together and say that's Republican. And the reality is that each side has meritorious operating principles mixed in with all of their crap. And we can't buy into packages. We need to learn how to sift out and advocate for principles rather than packages. And that is one of the reasons why I felt the need to actually put this all together, was to say we need to find a neutral, positive, but proactive way forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Go ahead, Carly, unmute yourself.
Thank you. It's not really a question. It's more of like, I think a lot of our energy is being so drained in reacting instead of responding.
Yes.
And it's getting so scattered everywhere that we're not left with the energy to focus ourselves in a positive direction. So I think we need to have that awareness of pointing ourselves in a direction that's going to bring us forward evolutionary in a positive direction. And I think if we are focusing on really good practical ideas that will move us collectively forward in a positive direction, I think that's a good direction to move in, and just narrow energy there, and then do like the mental health stuff on the side, as well as like
Yes.
fun and music and friendship and, you know, the good stuff. We need mental breaks and fun, and then get back into it and keep putting our energy towards in a very focused, positive direction. And I really like Alice's idea. I really like her forward thinking that we need to have idea sharing collectively of, you know, she had a great idea of kids need to learn how to survive. That's great. And I don't know if you guys have seen this movie, but this movie is called New in Town. And it's with Renee Zellweger, and I can't think of the other guy, but Harry Connick Jr. But it's about this community that their whole livelihood is based on this manufacturing company, and she's coming in to shut it all down, and everybody's going to lose their livelihood, you know. And so it's disintegrating, like we're talking about. But they think outside of the box, and one of the people that works at this organization, she makes pudding for everybody. And so they decide to reopen this business using her pudding recipe. So they're thinking outside the box, they're thinking collectively. And what ends up happening, instead of these corporations owning this business and shutting it down, the people end up buying the business themselves. And so they co-own this business. And so they own shares in the business. And then they can never be shut down again. Their livelihoods can never be affected again. And so they just thought outside the box how they can move forward in a positive direction. I like this idea sharing of doing that.
Yes. I agree with everything you said. Thank you.
Thank you, Carly. Appreciate it. Umpire, they told me that I am pronouncing your name wrong. First of all, please say your name. We understand French. And then please go ahead and ask yourself. Unmute yourself, umpire.
No. There is no problem. Where are you? It is good.
Are you sure?
Yeah, the pronunciation that doesn't matter. You know,
The
it is the intention which matter.
doesn't matter. Okay. Okay, Bob, did you hear that? The pronunciation doesn't matter. But just for the sake of it, how do they pronounce your name in French in Congo?
It is Empire.
Ampere. Okay. Bob was right. Ampere. Go ahead, Ampere.
I have a question. I want to know because we Baha'is, we are not supposed to go in politics. So that means that we will not create our own system of politics and propose it and have vote and so. How can we act on those structure of those political structure that already exist? Or so the question is, how can you act on the structure so it can change?
So Sholi Effendi described the Baha'i administrative order as the nucleus of the larger world order that will emerge. And the world order that Baha'u'llah pictures is the entire of humanity, not just the Baha'i community. There is no assumption in the Baha'i literature that the entire world will become Baha'i, but that the world order that Baha'u'llah envisions will encompass all of humanity. So the Baha'i community and its administrative order was described by Sholi Effendi as the nucleus. So I'm a biologist. So what does a nucleus do? A nucleus manages the code, the blueprint of life, and it sends out little bits of that blueprint out into the rest of the cell and gives instructions of you do this or you do that, you do that. If we take that idea that the Baha'i world is the nucleus, What we have to offer is advice and counsel and recommendation to the world at large, whether that's to people in general, businesses, organizations, NGOs, or governments. Baha'u'llah led the way. He said, "Dear Napoleon, I recommend you do this, this, and this." Dear Queen Victoria, bing, bang, boom. The Guardian did the same thing. Abdu'l-Baha wrote a book to the King of Iran, Secret of Divine Civilization. I recommend you see things in this way and you consider doing these things. So it is within the example, and the House of Justice has done it too. Not only have they issued documents about reshaping the United Nations, for example, they've also received dignitaries from heads of state and other governments who sought their advice. So analogously, Baha'i institutions can theoretically offer that, but we must be supremely wise about what we offer by focusing more on the principle and not on policy. That's the difference, how we keep sort of being apolitical, not being part of the machinery, while shedding the light of the Baha'i principles on the civic process. That's what institutions can do. That's just one example. There are many aspects of every country has a different political system. And some pieces of some countries, some pieces of their system, it's possible to participate in without being part of a party. Because what we are specifically prohibited from participating in is partisan process. But there are nonpartisan processes that we come in as individuals and we bring our personal enlightenment to how we do our job. So it really depends from one country to the next. But there are ways of diffusing the fragrance of our teachings to the decision-making environments that we have access to. That doesn't mean that we're making a political impact, but we are trying to impact the attitude of those who make political decisions. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yes. Thank you. It is very helpful, and because it is something very dangerous to be involved in. I would like to know what would be the difference between the two. I mean, if you can please give an example of the difference between someone who is acting in the policy and acting in the structure.
Very good question, Ampere. Very good question. Go ahead.
I think that first of all, it definitely differs from one nation to another because the system is very different. I know that, for example, in the United States, it is possible to have a non-party affiliated civic position with local government, state government, or federal government that doesn't require that you are part of a political platform that is involved in the power struggles between parties. But those are generally non-political posts. But I don't know what it's like in other countries. And certainly, like anybody who is considering these questions, I would say they should talk to their National Assembly, because their National Assembly would be most familiar with what is even an option and what's not. And like you said, in many, many, many parts of the world, any involvement is life-threatening. So that it's not a universal thing that Baha'is are supposed to do it. It's more that if you are inspired to do it, and it is possible to do it, and it is safe to do it, then it's your right to consider it. But all of those criteria have to be there. So that's sort of answering your question without really being able to answer your question.
Thank you.
Are you finished? Dr. Etemad, somebody wrote a very nice comment, said, we are learning how to engage in a public discourse, Ruhi 14. Ampar, are you finished?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you for your thoughts.
Sonia or Payman, please go ahead. Our congratulations for the wonderful wedding.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to make a comment about the opportunity that is coming up through the turmoil that the world is going through. And what I see, the reality of humanity is showing themselves how much prejudice or how much nationalism is growing. It's a negative, but in other hand, it is uplifting for us that recently, every time I talk to unity of mankind, it is so much positive, answer I get from people. Just right away they say, "Oh, I want to be part of it. I just want to be part of it," and without anything, I just talk to them about three onenesses and our principle. Oh, I want to be part of it.
Yes.
I don't know. So how can we separate this of the fear that people are the fear is there, and also they see that disunity and but also is strengthening us in what the movement is, the destruction and building. It's going through the same time.
Abdu'l-Baha, I think it's in the Tablets of the Divine Plan, but I don't remember off the top of my head, and I apologize. But he does speak to this whole phenomenon that when the world is in turmoil, the hearts are more receptive. And so we are seeing it again. And definitely the general truths of oneness and unity, many people, they already live that. Not only do they believe it, they are already living that. And I think that is the difference I see now compared to, let's say, when I was in my 20s and 30s, is that it was, oh, that's such a new idea, as opposed to, I've always felt that way and they've been living that way. And I think that what we can do to reinforce when somebody is attracted to these principles of unity is that we encourage them in certain ways. One, we say, well, you're already part of it. Rather than they say, I want to be part of it, you're already part of it. But we all need to find each other. One. Two, reassure that, this is eventually going to win. This oneness is going to win eventually. So what we can do is contribute to it in the way we are in our hearts, in the way we treat people, in the way we do our work, in the way we do our play, and in whatever other activities we choose to do as individuals. Let's contribute to it, and let's find out where all the others are, but reinforcing that they're already part of it. This is what I find people are needing in my sphere. They believe in these principles, but they believe that it's not going to win. They believe that the devil is going to destroy, basically, all the oneness that we have built over the past 40 years. And we can just reinforce that you've already are part of it. There are many who are part of it. We need to all get to know each other more, find each other, connect with each other, and know that this is inevitable.
that was wonderful.
If you don't mind, I just want to say, make one more comment about
Please.
that. I find myself, I am not educated enough, or I am not enriched myself enough to have this short 5 minutes presentation when this opportunity comes. And I think we have to come up with some of these study circles or something that to be more effective in our talk, and also to learn not to get politicals. Really, it's so easily we can go the other direction.
100% agree.
It's so scary. And then when I am talking, suddenly I get scared in my presentation or in my talk. Suddenly I go to the left side, suddenly I go to the right side, and I try to find this balance. And I know I need more exercise, more training in this field.
100% agree on all of that. We need the education, and we need the supportive discussions and practice with each other. And I think what that speaks to is something that the House of Justice has spoken to in one of the 9-year plan letters, where they're talking about, re-expanding the type of learning experiences we have in addition to the study circles that we've been doing. That, there's no reason why we can't have somebody give a little class or conduct a series of sessions where we read stuff about political non-involvement or about how to engage this. And then we talk about it and we role play and we figure out, well, how do I boil this down? And we practice giving, 2 minutes or less little summaries of things. That's the kind of thing that the institute process is actually meant to cultivate, is a culture of continual learning, not just of a specific curriculum, but a culture about anything we might need to be learning together.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the great question, and Dr. Etemad. With your permission, Dr. Etemad, I will read from the chat what Louise has written.
Sure.
It is interesting that in the Indigenous First Nations in Canada, the governance in these communities is non-partisan. I remember in the Yukon when one of the native Baha'is wanted to run for chief, the guidance from the Universal House of Justice came that it was okay for her to run as she wasn't representing a party.
Yes. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Shu, don't go away. Shu, Olga, please stay put. Thank you. Josh as well. Thank you, Louise. Appreciate it. Now, hi, Angela. Lovely to see you. Go ahead, please. Unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. I just have 2 comments that I'd like to make. The first is that when you talk about joining the integrative forces, it makes me think of a passage from Shoghi Effendi where it talks about that we are the generation of the half-light. And in that, it talks about that we have been assigned a task whose privilege we can never sufficiently appreciate, and the arduousness of which we can as yet but dimly recognize. So I think that's a thing to remember, that we're that generation of the half-light. And It goes on to talking about that we're called upon to experience the operation of the dark forces. So that's kind of part of where we are, and to recognize that we're here for a reason.
Yes.
That was one part I wanted to say. The other thing was, at the early part of your talk, you talked about the disintegrative forces and the integrative forces. And what I thought at that time is that I think for myself, and I suspect it's for all of us, that we need to examine those old patterns that we're holding on to, especially at this time when there is so much political polarization or feeling threatened, and how we can, deal with certain things, and to recognize within us where those old patterns are. Because when we change those patterns and have them be part of the integrative process, that's when we find hope. So any comments you'd like to make about that, I'd love to hear them. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
I don't have any that pop in my head. The disintegration is so easy to see, and it's the integrative processes and events and activities and forces at play. Like, I'm actively looking for it more. I mean, I interact with enough people to know that that it's going on, in other ways. And I certainly, growing up as a Baha'i, I lived with the assumption that, well, 99.9% of the integrative process was the Baha'is. And like, clearly that's not ever what was intended in the writings. And that is certainly not the reality. Not that that's a bash on us. It's that we need to recognize what our place is. We are a nucleus. We are not the entire cell. And we may have an organizational relationship ultimately in the future, but at this point, we're just part of anything and everything that's trying to do things in the new ways. And, but it gets really, really messy. And I think that if we just give ourselves, I think the other thing is that still a lot of Baha'is struggle with not being involved in politics. And so many Baha'is will think that means we're not allowed to think about or talk about anything that's going on because it's political. When in fact, Baha'u'llah says we should be anxiously concerned with the needs of the day. So we need to learn how to separate what's the don't do from everything we can, and give each other permission to start bringing these things up and talking about it. Because I don't have an answer. I've got questions. I've got a handful of quotes that are sort of helpful, and I'm kind of brash enough to presume to throw it out to a group of people on a Zoom meeting, but I don't really know what the hell I'm talking about. I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. And I'm desperate to hear what other people have to say. So, but, as wonderful as this is something to be happening on the grassroots, because people are needing this everywhere. And if we start giving each other permission to talk about these things, knowing that they're not taboo, and being part of the discussion. And okay, sometimes we might slip into talking the wrong way about something. Then we just tell ourselves, you know what, guys, I think we're going in the wrong way. Let's redirect this conversation right there. Correct it. Don't shut it down. Just correct it. And then get practice so that we can unburden ourselves to each other and find common comfort in each other and in our teachings.
Thank you very much. We have Daniela, and then we'll finish with Alice, since we will have at least 15 minutes of devotional. And I would like to ask Olga and Shu and Pina, and of course Josh and a few other friends to make sure that they are staying with us. Daniela, where are you?
Daniela or Aniela?
I'm sorry, Aniela. I'm getting old, Aniela. I'm sorry.
Not as old as me. I wanted to offer that the integrative process is very easy to see and recognize and delight in. It's when we create spaces that are safe and people are learning to think together. Not agenda driven, but learning to think together and discover together. The disintegrative process is as soon as it becomes disunity, not the clash of differing opinions. I was invited out as a keynote speaker with senators, House of Representatives, attorney generals, mayor, all of their children feed into these two schools. I won't say the state. And I had a very different take on the subject of what the panel wanted to talk about. And the panel consulted 3-4 weeks ahead of time, and just adding, never saying Baha'i, but adding the Baha'i viewpoint on identity, the identity of the soul, the nobility of the soul, this idea of the bird of humanity having a masculine and a feminine wing, changed the whole perspective of this conference. And then going there and offering a way through the Me Too movement, the ways we have created more and more and more sects, more divisions, more identifications, not clarity, but more divisions. And simply, I worked 3 weeks on what I would offer with people that I trusted, so that I knew what I would offer and how I would be able to get us to a round table, not to a podium and a bunch of passive listeners. And it worked. So we have homework to do. What do we believe? I'm always asking myself and others that want to move the social discourse to a spiritual discourse without ever saying a spiritual discourse. So how do we learn to think together? And you nailed it with a couple of things. I beg everybody to go into book 14 and book 14.2, where you will, your facilitator, these higher courses really challenge our belief system, but our language. What is our language? How do we communicate with each other on such a humble but forthright way that is commanding towards the principles of Aula, not a single person? And then we begin to think, learn to think together. So that's my 2 cents. And I was with a bunch of politicians. I was with them, and it didn't matter because we're all very hungry to learn.
Dr. Etemad, any
I could-
comment? No,
I could have listened for another 20 minutes.
she's lovely.
That was just so, that was like water to the roots. Thank you.
That's true. That's true. I just wanted to read
I
for you.
love you.
I love you more. Those avoiding talking about urgent issues have been very hard on me. Appreciate confirmation that it is okay to speak to what is urgent. That was, it is a very rich chat, and probably I will copy it and send it for you a little later, Dr. Etemad.
I would
May I
appreciate that.
just say to Deborah, who offered this quote, that we are the divine physicians, lowercase, delivering the capital letters of the divine physician. And if we don't talk about these urgent issues in a way that is magnetic, then who will?
Yeah.
Thank you, Aniela. We have Alice. We have
I just want to make some suggestions. In the
sure.
Baha'i faith, we have consultation. And that's what we need to learn to do. Get a couple people together and start learning about consultation, how to express. Each one of us on this call tonight can take one subject, and I'm more into my spiritual self and what I do and what I say, because the Holy Spirit, no matter how much you know, how much education you have, if you allow to study and allow the Holy Spirit to help you deliver the message. There are also some things I see in the Baha'i faith. You know, you have the Toastmasters. They have, I've taken that many times, that help us to speak. It don't matter who you with, what politician it is. And sometimes in this faith, when they talk about the oneness and the unity, we don't see ourselves one with one another. We got a lot to work on within ourselves.
Mhm.
You
Yes.
living in this country and you say, well, I'm not prejudiced. I'm not this. Yes, you are. Are you not racist? Yes, you are. Each and every one of us, because we raised in this society, whether you black, white, green, or gray. And I'm here to erase, and with people that know me, I'm very frank, honest, straightforward to what I say. Study to show yourself approved. The young man was saying, well, I'm not educated enough to have enough education to speak. Yes, you do. You speak well. We need to encourage one another and get off of these high horses. If you got a doctor on this call, he's a doctor because he put in time, study to become a doctor. That don't make him any better than you or any less than you. He just put in more time to study and to go forward. He did more time than you or me. So you need to look at, what do you bring to the table? Each one of us is a piece of the puzzle. You have something to say, you have something to give in this world, and we need to listen to one another and stop trying to agree with somebody. That's that person's experience, that's their learning experience. So listen and learn from it. That's why I have up there forever learning.
Thank you
Because I
so
listen to everybody giving me a piece of information that I'm having, a prayer, or whatever they have to give. I just lost a friend of mine in this faith. Every time Linda picked that phone up, she said a prayer with you. I have a hole missing because I don't have people like that all the time. And the prayer and our faith, my spirituality, I'm not going to water it down for anybody, because without God, you don't know what I'm going through every day. You don't know the struggle that I'm having. I just look good and make it feel good. But this is what we got to do for each other, is learn to listen, put that piece of puzzle together for us. And that's what the world needs. I haven't had anyone not want a Baha'i prayer, not want this learning. Nobody I know. So we got to give it. We got it. You've been endowed with it. You signed the card. So you got to get yourself out the way and let's do the work.
Bless your heart, Alice. Thank you so very, very much. Alice, don't forget to participate in our firesides every week. And I don't know where you got our invitation from, but please do come and we will enjoy your comments and your guidance. I really, really appreciate it. Much love to you.
Much love to God. Much love to Baha'u'llah. Much love to Shodi Effendi. Much love to Abdul Baha. Much love to the Bab. And much love to Bahil Kanoon. That's my star to help me, strengthen me, and give me strength every day. Thank y'all. And I love you so much. Love you, love you, love you.
Love you, love you, love you too. Wow. Wow. Roya Jun, please go ahead.
Just I wanted to say that we started after the Ruhis with 3-4 non-Baha'is. They love the peace message. So we have it on the Zoom. We finished the peace message and they really, truly enjoyed it. They thought that this is it gives them hope. We started the prosperity of humanity that we are
Wonderful.
going. So I thought you can just think about that because it's like a social action when
Yes.
we the Ruhis. It's nice for these people to know that we have the social action. So we did 3-4 of the Ruhis, and then everybody was talking about social action. So we went right to the peace message. So just the
Wonderful.
and they are really enjoying it. So
Wonderful. That's wonderful.
so you can start that with your group. It's really,
Yes.
really thought-provoking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shidan and then Shu, the last one. Shidan, go ahead, please. Shidan, please go ahead and unmute yourself. Shu, please go ahead. What did you want to say?
Oh, okay. Recently I have studied sort of going back to my roots. I become Baha'i in China back in 93. So I studied the Heart Sutra and the Tao Te Ching and Serenity Sutra. What surprised me with these two sutras, which I don't have studied before, they are each very short. The Heart Sutra was only 260 words, Chinese words, and the Serenity Sutra is only 391. They reminds me so much with the hidden words. It just make me so happy, that connection. And I think we are dealing with so much. I mean, for me as a Chinese, I visited China in November, and this was almost 6 years I have not been back to my home country because of the pandemic. What I see, I have family, friends, that's where I grew up, half of my life there. There's a lot of weight, on my shoulder coming back. I feel like it took me a long time to digest. And before I'm able to digesting that and what happened here in the US, which is this country I'm living on, I feel like I was double weighted. I was so crushed. I just don't know how to lighten up myself. Somehow, these sutra sort of appeared on me, and learning them in Chinese and makes a difference. The language, the words.
Yes.
I think my conclusion is sort of coming back to everyday practice to be better self.
Yes.
The Heart Sutra is so much about going inward, going back to where the heart is. The heart is the universe. And it was just really beautiful. And because in the Baha'i activities, there's so much about teaching and study and so much writings. And for someone, English is not your mother language. It's not easy, it's difficult to catch up, Sometimes I feel like I have to multiple study to be able to grasp.
Yes.
And how do you find the balance on this, not crushing ourselves? And I think these founding let me the connection with the hidden words, it helps me grounded. And it's not less teaching, because when we practice in our, sort of be more aware in daily life, people surround you, they sense that. Everything you do is teaching. Everything you think, you share, you talk is teaching. So I'm connect in this past year, I'm connect with like 200 Chinese living in the Bay Area.
Wow.
And I'm in their tea group, I'm in their, arts group, or, cooking group, and, outing and all sorts of things, everything we do and we share. And because of my study in the Taoism, in the Buddhism, we connect even better because they know me as a Baha'i. I'm not just emphasize the Baha'i teaching, I'm just sharing. And we found so much more common ground.
Yes.
I'm not trying to push them anyway. It was just so wonderful.
Yes.
Anyway, that's my sharing.
Oh my goodness. I'm very inspired to read this now. Thank you very much.
And you will be more inspired, Dr. Etemad, when she says prayers in a few minutes in Chinese. Shidan, you're the last one. Please go ahead. It's already 9 o'clock. Go ahead, please.
You want me to say prayer?
Shidan, you are muted. May I ask you please to unmute yourself?
Okay.
You just need to click. I apologize. I can't unmute you because you just have to unmute yourself.
I'm very sorry.
It's
I had
okay.
a hard time figuring out this, and I have been listening to all the beautiful comments by other speakers. So bear with me. I'm just thinking loud to reformulate what I was going to say. But I just wanted to make a comment regarding not being able to see or identify the forces of integration. And by not being able to see them, we should not be discouraged at all.
Yes.
I just thought of Abdul Baha when he turned the earth in the temple in the Wilmette. He said that temple is built. But to people who had no vision of neither the spiritual nor the physical aspect of the temple, it was very hard to imagine. What does he mean when he says the temple is built? When you go to a construction site, I don't know if you have ever been to a construction site. In the recent months, we have been looking at the pictures of construction site of the Shrine of Abdul Baha. And in the earlier days, especially, it was very difficult to envision what is happening. This is far from what the architect has given us initially. But when the foundation is being built, when the plumbing is being put in place, when the electrical wirings are made, when the different aspects of the whole are under construction, it is very difficult to identify them as being a part of the whole.
Mm-hmm.
It is like when we drive, we never look at the hood of the car, but we look very far. And of course, the near proximity is within the field of our vision. And that is what it means when we are told to fix our gaze on the vision of Baha'u'llah. Instead of being discouraged that we are not seeing the constructive forces, so what we are doing is perhaps is useless, or maybe we are doing something wrong, we fix our gaze on the vision of Baha'u'llah and look to the directives of the standard bearers of the cause, being
Thank you.
the
I'm sorry,
international teachers.
Shidan, I'm very sorry. I'm very grateful for your comments. I apologize. At 9 o'clock, we usually close the evening, but we haven't had a devotional, and our friends from Russia and other places are waiting, umpire from Congo. May I ask you to please kind of shorten your comment or your question so we can continue? I apologize.
Yes, of course. No, I just wanted to just make a comment that we should not be discouraged if the final picture is not within our vision. Just trust the instruction of the standard bearers of the cause and move forward. I'm
Thank
sorry for taking the time. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you so very much. I apologize that you were the last person. Thank you. First of all, Dr. Etemad, the time is too short for me to thank you, but you know that I'm thanking you from the bottom of my heart. Do you?
I do know, and I'm so grateful to be part of this experience. I feel so enriched from hearing everything that everyone has had to share.
Thank you. Thank you. We usually have half an hour of devotionals. We will just continue with only a few. I would like to ask Josh, after a long time, he joined us. Then Shu, Olga from Russia, and Pina from Indonesia. Friends, I'm sorry, Mr. Hissam, I can't because I have names to go. We love you, Mr. Hissam, and next time,
Yes,
please.
sure, thank you. No, if it was for saying the prayers.
Sure, sure. But by the way, Dr. Etemad, 95,000 people asked for your presentation. So I don't know how to kind of email everybody, but please, can you put it in chat, or do you want to send it to me? Olga, don't go away.
I will, I'll convert it to a PDF.
Okay.
And then I will send it to you.
Bless your heart.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Josh, go ahead, please.
Yes, ma'am. Vouchsafe unto me, O my God, the full measure of thy love and thy good pleasure, and through the attractions of thy resplendent light, enrapture our hearts. O thou who art the supreme evidence and the all glorified, send down upon me as a token of thy grace, thy vitalizing breezes throughout the daytime and in the night season, O Lord of bounty. No deed have I done, O my God, to merit beholding thy face. And I know of a certainty that were I to live as long as the world lasts, I would fail to accomplish any deed such as to deserve this favor. Inasmuch as the station of a servant shall ever fall short of access to thy holy precincts, unless thy bounty should reach me and the splendor, mercy pervade me, and thy loving kindness encompass me. All praise be unto thee, O thou besides whom there is none other God. Graciously enable me to ascend unto thee, to be granted the honor of dwelling in thy nearness, and to have communion with thee alone. No God is there but thee. Indeed, shouldest thou desire to confer blessings upon a servant, thou wouldest blot out from the realm of his heart every mention or disposition except thine own mention. And shouldest thou ordain evil for a servant by reason of that which his hands have unjustly wrought before thy face, thou wouldest test him with the benefits of this world and of the next, that he might become preoccupied therewith and forget thy remembrance. The Bob.
I'll say a prayer of unity, unite the hearts of thy servants in Chinese. 我的上帝啊， 我的上帝啊，联合您仆役们的心智，显示您伟大的旨意给他们，愿他们听从你的诫命，遵守您的律法。上帝啊，帮助他们极力成事，并赐予他们力量来侍奉你。上帝啊，切莫让他们孤立无援，而以您智慧之光引导大家的步伐，并以您的爱来鼓舞他们的心灵，诚然您是他们的天助者，他们的主宰。巴哈欧拉。
Lauded be thy name, O my God. I entreat thee by the fragrances of the raiment of thy grace, which at thy bidding and in conformity with thy desire were diffused throughout the entire creation, and by the day star of thy will that hath shone brightly through the power of thy might and thy sovereignty, above the horizon of thy mercy, to blot out from my heart all idle fancies and vain imaginings, that with all my affections I may turn unto thee, O thou Lord of all mankind. I am thy servant and the son of thy servant, O my God. I have laid hold on the handle of thy grace, and clung to the cord of thy tender mercy. Ordain for me the good things that are with thee, and nourish me from the table thou didst send down out of the clouds of thy bounty and the heaven of thy favor. Thou in very truth art the Lord of the worlds, and God of all that are in heaven and all that are on earth.
Prayer for the departed loved ones. Oh my God, O thou forgiver of sins, bestower of gifts, dispeller of afflictions. Oh my God, O thou forgiver of sins, bestower of gifts, dispeller of afflictions. Verily, I beseech thee to forgive the sins of such as have abandoned the physical garment and have ascended to the spiritual world, and have ascended to the spiritual world. O my Lord, purify them from trespasses, dispel their sorrows, and change the darkness into light. O my Lord, purify them from trespasses, dispel their sorrows, and change the darkness into light. Cause them to enter the garden of happiness. Cleanse them with the most pure water, and grant them to behold thy splendors on the loftiest mount. Cause them to enter the garden of happiness. Cleanse them with the most pure water, and grant them to behold thy splendors on the loftiest mount. Abdul Baha, Abdul Baha.
Bruce, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sonia, what would I do without you? Thank you. Empire, could you unmute yourself and say a prayer? Okay, it's very late for him there. Dear friends, thank you very much for such an amazing evening. Dr. Etemad, I don't know, I don't have words to thank you, but it's always like that. At the end of your sessions, I'll become speechless, and that's something hard to happen. But thank you very much. We appreciate it, and I will wait for your PDF. And thank you, Mr. Mehrabi, for offering to send it to the friends. I appreciate it. I'll send it to you too. Dr. Hessam, please forgive me. Next session will be your prayer. I apologize. It's already 9:15.
That's all right. That's all right.
I
I really enjoyed the presentation, and thank you for your sacrifice, for the wonderful job.
I love you, Kambeze.
Love
Thank
you
you.
too.
Love you, Feroz.
I love you more. I love you more. Thank
Love
you.
you all. Thank you.
Thank you,
Nice.
Feroz.
Much love. See you next week. Olga, love you. Dr. Etemad, thank you so much.
Thank you, as always, for such a wonderful experience.
Thank you. Thank you
That's
so
it,
much.
also. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Josh, come back next week. Otherwise, I'll knock at your door.
You're more than welcome. It might be a week or two, actually. I'll be at work, but I will see you
Okay.
soon.
Alice, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it very, very much. Thank you, Bob and Louise. Oh, Juliet was here. We could have had a prayer. I'm sorry, Juliet. Next time. And early in the morning, I apologize, Juliet. Today was a crowded day.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Forrest. Bye-bye. Wonderful.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Cher, thank you for being with us. Deborah, love you. Elizabeth, thank you so much. Jalal, that's great that you participated. Farajun, thank you. Thank you. Kathy, that's lovely. How are you, Kathy? Thank you, Kathy.
Right.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Happy belated birthday, Farajun.
Thank you so much. Let me turn. Sorry, I was out. Let me turn my light on so I can.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry. I will stay behind to copy the chat. That was wonderful seeing you. Thank you.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Wonderful. That was a wonderful program.
It was. It was. I wish he was my son. I'm jealous to his mother, but I can only say that now that she's not here.
You are the Khalejun.
Azizam, you know, Kambeze, she speaks 5 languages, and she actually, Pina was an auxiliary board member, and she has such a wonderful Baha'i career. Later on, maybe we should ask her to come and talk.
That would be wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Alice, we love you. Can we see you, Alice, now that nobody is here?